For the safety of your viewing pleasure and for my sanity, this video will be played in what I like to call censored mode. Enjoy. Oh my fucking god, I can't fucking stand this movie! Shit! Hello everybody, Tyrone the God 3 here, and welcome to the review of Dragon Ball Z Movie 11, Bio Broly. Okay, so the reason this review even took this long in order for me to record and upload is because for one, midterms, I had to go through those because I'm still a college student, and two, I had to actually rewatch this movie because I try my best to forget the moments of this movie, just period. There's so much wrong with this movie, and the overall, the summary, I'm going to go through the summary, obviously, like I always do in the timeline placement, and my thoughts on the movie are probably going to be what takes this video's longest. So, with Broly being back for the third time, let's do the review. Let's start off with the timeline placement, which makes this movie frustrating already. This movie expects me to believe that this took place after the battle royale that Goten, Trunks, and Android 18 had along with Hercule. Now, the problem with that is the fact that the minute the battle royale ended, Android 18, Krillin, and the others had retreated in order to retrieve the rest of the Dragon Balls, along with Bulma, Chi-Chi, and the others. While that was happening, Goten and Trunks were going to go find Babidi as well as Majin Buu in order to help the Z Warriors in that fight. So, they immediately split their separate ways when the tournament was over. Which means there's no way possible that this movie can take place after the World Tournament. Now, you can argue that this movie takes place in a timeline in which Vegeta beats Majin Buu, which would make more sense. Just like the movie Broly's Second Coming. Problem is, Gohan's nowhere to be seen. But then again, Gohan is taken to the Supreme Kai planet. So, as far as we're concerned, he's gone. And Goku's in Otherworld, though. Which means that since Goku was put in Otherworld, this took place after when Goku went back to Otherworld. Which means he used up all of his time that he had to be brought back to life. And it's just a confusing mess. For the sake of saving everyone, we're going to say this timeline takes place in a timeline in which Vegeta had killed himself but took Majin Buu with him. Now, as the whereabouts of Gohan, we assume that he's still training with Supreme Kai. So there you go. Anyway, with the timeline being set, the movie basically begins with the scientist already conducting an experiment to make one of the biomechanical warriors. And with that said, we go to chamber number 12, and then before we get to see really much of anything, we cut to Hercule's house. Here at Hercule's house, Android 18 is destroying everything that Hercule holds dear because she's warning him, hey, either you better pay me my money because I'm the one that took the fall for you in the tournament. So Hercule is basically scared because, the money hasn't been given to him yet from the World Tournament. While this is all happening, Trunks, Krillin, Goten, and Marin are sitting outside checking out all of this, and they notice some guy comes in. This businessman comes in and issues a challenge to Hercule, and the challenge comes from a guy named Jaguar. Jaguar is someone that Hercule trained with a long time ago. However, they had a fight when they were both children, and Hercule ended up becoming the winner of that and humiliating Jaguar. But Jaguar still went off to become a rich billionaire. And then Hercule's rich too, so I guess it didn't go out all bad. However, Jaguar informed his cousin, which was the businessman, that Hercule wet the bed a long time ago when he was a little kid. And that's very stupid because he uses that as a blackmail in order to bring Hercule into his area. Android 18 wants to get paid her money, so she goes with Hercule to Jaguar's palace. And just for fun, Trunks and Goten want to come along. Krillin wants to come along too, but Android 18 orders him to stay behind and watch over Marin. So Krillin flies to Kami house in order to take Marin back. However, Marin comically does have to go pee, and she ends up peeing before Krillin takes her to the bathroom successfully. So that was kind of funny, I guess. Meanwhile, we cut to Jaguar's palace as the ship flies over the ocean, through the beaches, and all of that stuff to get to a palace that's in the middle of an island. And we get there, and Hercule's ready to fight is ready to fight Jaguar. At least that's what he thinks is going to happen. Jaguar tells him that he's not going to fight him directly, but instead he's going to fight his bio warriors. When he explains who bio warriors are, Trunks overhears it, and Goten. This scene's cool because it shows how much Trunks knows about science. Trunks explains exactly what biogenetic engineering is because he's from Capsule Corp and he knows a lot of things. So it's pretty cool to see that Trunks maintains a lot of his smartness. Goten pretends that he knows what Trunks is talking about, but in the end has no clue. So that was a comical scene. And then Jaguar's dog actually is trying to bite Trunks because Trunks doesn't do well with dogs and Goten does well with animals. So it does show off both of their traits. Goten's really well with animals and works well with nature, while Trunks is good at scientific. And yeah, so it's good to see like nature and science clash like that. But yeah, that was basically showing their characters off. But afterwards, Jaguar explains that he won't be fighting him. Hercule will be fighting a lot of the biomechanical warriors. Hercule has no problem trying to take on this challenge, assuming that the bio warriors are about as strong as Jaguar was when Hercule fought him, and Hercule won that fight. Android 18 comes with, and they all walk into the inner arena of the palace. And when they see the biomechanical warriors, they know that these bio warriors are really strong. Oh, and they're rewinding for a second. There's a scene where Hercule asks the businessman, I can't remember his name right now, that will any of these warriors have spiky golden hair, because Hercule's afraid of the Super Saiyans that fought in the Cell games. And they're like, no, that's not going to be a threat. So yeah. With that said, Hercule has no fear of the warriors, but then when he realizes how strong that the bio warriors are, he asks Android 18 to fight in as one of his disciples. Android 18 agrees, however, she also blackmails him with more money, so Hercule owes even more money than he would have won in the prize money for the tournament. So, there we go. With that said, Trunks and Goten come into the fray too and bust in and help Android 18 fight off the biomechanical warriors. The fight begins and Goten, Trunks, and Android 18 take on the bio warriors and knock them out. With that said, Jaguar's really impressed but somewhat scared, but he's not scared. He's not scared at all. However, the businessman's like, oh crap, they took out a lot of our bio warriors. Jaguar's like, it's all good, and then he opens up a chamber which reveals that the battle arena that they were all fighting in was also a scientifical, laboratory to develop more bio warriors. Trunks and Goten go to check out the entire laboratory while Hercule is confused as to what's going on, and Android 18 is growing impatient. While searching around the entire laboratory, Trunks actually finds one of the scientists, and he's talking about how he knows a lot about science. And the scientific lady's like, "Oh, that's cute." But while they're talking, Goten actually wanders upon one of the chambers. It's Chamber 12, and when they look at Chamber 12, they notice that Broly is in there. And Goten and Trunks are really shocked and scared and are wondering how the hell is Broly in there. Broly was killed a long time ago. They also notice that Broly's Broly because he has his tail, which is weird because his tail was removed in both of his other movies. I guess when they clone him, he is cloned in his original form. So anyway, they ask how in the hell is Broly back, and they run into the shaman that was in the previous movie. That was in movie 10, Broly's Second Coming. When they run into the shaman basically goes, oh, well, you all killed Broly and made sure of that. However, you little brats, thanks to you all, I got kicked out of my village, so I had nowhere else to go. However, I did find a chip of frozen blood from when Broly died the last time, and I used that as a sample so that the Jaguar scientists can clone a new Broly using biogenetic engineering. So yeah, there you go. He's a clone, one of the most fan-fiction-y ass ways to bring someone back to life from the dead. Broly is a goddamn clone. Anyway, Broly breaks out. Well, no, he doesn't break out yet. Not yet. When they're talking and they tell them about the entire situation and dude, you can't let Broly out. Broly sees Goten and he gets into his whole little Kakarot fit and starts raging out, and the machine goes haywire, and Chamber 12 is slowly starting to break apart. When Chamber 12 breaks apart, Broly's free and he comes out of the thing. However, this time, since he was released prematurely, all of the acid that was on Broly made him melt into this brown, gloppy, ugly, greenish monster thing. So yeah, he looks like crap, which is reminiscent because this movie. Anyway, with Broly being out looking like a monster, Goten and Trunks get scared and immediately back off first because they don't know how to handle this situation just as of yet. Hercule gets way too scared and asks Android 18 in order to take care of this too. She agrees but blackmails him for more money. So Android 18 goes in and fights Bio Broly. While this is happening, because the chamber had broke prematurely, it caused damage around the laboratory, which means the laboratory is slowly melting this purple globby acid. Anything that the globby acid touches other than itself will immediately melt. Android 18 tries to fight Bio Broly, but to no avail. Bio Broly's just too powerful and ends up shrugging off a lot of her hits, and she ends up getting knocked out. Goten and Trunks go in to fight Bio Broly as well, and they actually are doing pretty well for themselves because it's 2 against 1 and they're all jumping and zipping around everywhere. Bio Broly, however, still overpowers them, so he ends up knocking both of them out temporarily. While this is happening, the purple globby acid stuff is spreading, and a lot of the scientists are trying to escape, Jaguar and his businessman cousin included. They're trying to escape, and while this is all happening, Android 18, Trunks, and Goten keep trying to fight Bio Broly, but to no avail. This thing's too damn strong and ends up knocking them out. Again. While Goten and Trunks keep getting back up for more punishment, they end up fighting him again, and they end up getting knocked out. Android 18 comes in, gets knocked out again, only this time instead of she was about to get killed, Krillin comes in with the Destructo Disc and slices half of Bio Broly's head off. He can regenerate, obviously, because, he's made of biogenetic material this time instead of flesh. Krillin jumps into the fray and tries to help fight Bio Broly off too, but he ends up getting knocked away and swatted like a fly. Android 18 comes in, tries to fight him, and then that ends up failing as well. Hercule is comedically trying to leave the laboratory, but things aren't working out for him, and he ends up stuck on an iron pole for a while. Goten and Trunks get back up and try to fight him again, because they need to find a way to beat him because he's just too strong. Goten actually gets very injured in the fight to the point where one of his arms is disabled, while Trunks is taking the batter of most of Bio Broly's beatings, just like in the last movie. Goten comes in for a surprise attack and actually throws Bio Broly off for a while, but in the end he ends up getting knocked completely unconscious. With Android 18, Krillin, and Goten out, Trunks tries to find a way in order to beat Bio Broly, and he notices the acid because a lot of the scientists are still trying to escape him. A lot of them ended up dying. But Trunks notices that he did a flashback and learns that anything that the acid touches other than itself will be melted. So Trunks actually makes a plan in order to destroy Bio Broly using the acid. What he ends up doing is launching an energy blast towards the one of the tankers, and the tanker explodes. but Trunks is trying to dodge a lot of Broly's attacks. The tanker explodes and the acid gets all over Broly and melts his entire body because, he's not made of the same material. So he ends up getting melted over. Trunks, since he saved Goten, ends up getting Goten out of the laboratory. And before Trunks got hit, Hercule's pipe that he was hanging on actually fell on Bio Broly's head and distracted him for a minute, giving him long enough chance to get away. But with that said, the businessman and Jaguar just barely escape, thanks to Krillin, who got them out of there. And no, Goten got them out of there when he regained consciousness. And then Krillin ends up saving one of the female scientists from before. And it was funny. There's a scene where he's like, if we fall, we die. And he was all serious with it. And she starts hugging Krillin really hard. And Android 18 gets pissed and pushes them. And she's like, go. And then Trunks saves one of the scientists too, I think. And they finally make their way out of the laboratory. And they're all running. And they notice that the purple globby acid is getting too far. And launches all over the place. And it's just melting everywhere. And it's going to kill all of them. Hercule runs out of the island, jumps off the island, goes into the water, starts swimming, trying to save himself. And Hercule's about to get hit by the acid, but what ends up happening, the water brushes against the purple globby acid, and the salt water ends up turning the acid into stone. Goten knows this now and learns, okay, I know how we can stop all this acid from spreading. And then they're like, well, what's the plan? So apparently Trunks knows the Kamehameha too, because he uses it twice in this movie. Krillin, Trunks, and Goten end up powering up, and in this scene is odd because Krillin's power up is the same as a Super Saiyan, which is yellow instead of white like it should be because he's a human. Anyway, they all end up using the Kamehameha at once and ends up knocking all of the seawater over the laboratory to so it can turn all of the purple globby acid stuff into stone because the salt water turns it all into stone. And because they do that, they successfully turn everything back. They successfully turn the acid into stone, and they're safe. Or at least that's what they think, because then Broly comes back, only this time he's a giant purple globby acid-like monster and is about to strike them. But then, since there's so much water, the water ends up turning him all the way to full stone, and he ends up breaking apart because they end up blasting the stone statue. So that's it. That's finally the end of Broly, for good. And Jaguar and the businessman are just comically arguing about the whole situation. And Hercule is laughing because he's safe and everything. And when they all get back, Android 18's like, hey, Hercule's like, hey, you gotta save me. And Android 18's like, if I do, you owe me all of this money total. And Hercule's like, never mind, I think I'll just drown. And he comically drowns, and they all laugh about it. So with that said, all's well that ends well. They all laugh, and then we cut to Otherworld, where Goku learns that Broly is causing havoc in HFIL, and Pikkon and Goku have to go in and save and settle things down there. So with that said, Goku is thinking about Goten and Trunks, and they win, and the credits roll, and we get to see actually with Trunks and Goten being kids and hanging out with their families. Like Goten's born, and he's playing with Gohan, and Trunks is born, and he's comically playing with Vegeta's face. And that's the end of the movie. Because, yeah, Goten and Trunks' movie. Now, with that said, my thoughts on the movie. Well, this movie is bad. Really bad. Bad in the sense that there was no reason for Broly to be in this movie. My God. Why the did they bring Broly back a third time? The second time was bad, but not too bad, because they brought Cooler back. And I don't really like when they bring movie villains back. But God, this was obsessive. This was terrible. It was a clone, for sake. A clone. That is the most pathetic reason to bring somebody back. It was so bad. It was really, really bad. And like, not, ignoring that, a lot of the complaints that we get that this movie gets is the fact that not just because Broly is a clone, but because of the fact that Gohan, Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, none of them were really in this movie. Now, to be honest, that's not one of the things I'll complain about. I'm not so upset about the fact that Gohan isn't in this movie. I'm upset with the fact that this movie doesn't utilize Goten and Trunks to their fullest. Because if Goten and Trunks are in this movie, then how come Saltwater is the thing that ends up beating Broly? Like, nothing spectacular comes in to really beat Broly. And I get it, Goten and Trunks are like the dynamic duo and all, but I think this is too early in a movie in order to make them the heroes, at least right now. Have them know the fusion and actually fight an enemy legitimately before that happens. Because as of right now, there was really no point. There was really no point in it. And honestly, I think this movie would have been pretty cool if the villain wasn't Broly and there was a bit more of a cast here, because the cast was boring. That's what most of it was. It was cool to see Krillin back, being comical as always, and it's interesting to see Android 18 actually have a fighting role in a movie, because this is really the only time she shows to be a good guy. I mean, like, fight as a good guy. Because in most of the other movies, she doesn't really fight or do much of anything. Which is sad because of all the trouble that she caused the Z Warriors during the Android saga. You would think Android 18 would be a pretty good fighter. But not. So, it was kind of disappointing to see that Android 18, someone who's stronger than the Super Saiyans, mind you, was having the most disadvantage in this movie. I guess it was mostly to show off that Trunks and Goten are supposed to be the stars here. But, like I said, I like the idea of Goten and Trunks having their own movie. I just think it was too early for it. As far as the timeline is concerned, it was too early for it. Like, I think this would still have been a good time to make Gohan the main character. But then it would have looked too much like Broly's Second Coming, which is another movie where they bring Broly back. My problem, like I said, is that this movie is about Broly again. Like, the movie reflects how pathetic Broly gets. Like, in the last movie, I forgot to mention this too, all he says is Kakarot, as if his brain had went to mush, and that's the only thing he can say. But now, it's like, he doesn't say anything in this movie, he just goes, blah. And it's just frustrating to know that we have to keep bringing Broly back. It's a pathetic attempt to make a movie. Like, I would have accepted any other thing else if they were going to make a movie like this. They could have just biogenetically made some new villain called, I don't know, they could have called it some clever pun or something. And, like, this would have made for a more interesting movie, because the plot isn't that bad. The reason for why Hercule's here is pathetic, though, for him wetting the bed. That's fucking stupid. But, like, they could have done better plot-wise. They could have definitely done better plot-wise. They could have used this template, this whole science motif, but they could have done it differently. Like, Hercule could have just easily taken the challenge to fight against Jaguar's warriors without being blackmailed that he wet the bed. Like, that's stupid. That's a dumb reason for this plot to even begin. One thing I will say I like the movie for is it shows off Trunks and Goten's traits very well. It shows that Goten's one with nature and he likes animals and shit. And Trunks is very scientific. I love that they made Kid Trunks really scientifically smart in this movie. I respect that. Because it shows that he is smart. He's just not quite like adult Trunks. He's not as serious as adult Trunks. Because he's from a different time. Oh, and they showed Trunks' ass. That was weird. I did not like that scene. I think they did that again in this Broly second coming movie. So I don't know what it is with Trunks and asses, but they keep showing it, and it's weird. It's definitely a change if you like the future Trunks, because it's like, this Trunks is too happy-go-lucky. He's a bit of a brat, actually. But I like the Goten Trunks duo. A lot of people don't like Goten and Trunks as a duo, but I like it. I just think that, like, it needs to be used in better moderation. Because if this movie, as of this movie, it was too early. They didn't benefit from it for real. So with that said, with a boring, like, too early duo and a pathetic cast, as well as a piss poor plot with a good template behind it, and also a bad, like, oh, and Broly's fucking back. So it's all just bad. It all comes together into a movie that's just not good. It takes more time than anything else, and it's not really that entertaining. I can't recommend this movie at all, because first off, you gotta watch 2 other movies in order to even know who Broly is. So that's a pain in the ass. And then, after all of that, you gotta sit through the fact that this villain has been back 3 times. That was unnecessary. Cooler was only brought back once. This bastard was brought back 3 times. Why? Why the fuck was he brought back 3 times? What was the purpose? Why did they do that? I see no reason why they needed to bring him back 3 times. It's frustrating. It was really frustrating. That's more what I can say. Like, this is literally the second worst Dragon Ball film I've ever seen. What's the first? Unfortunately will have to do a review of that later. But yes, this was definitely the worst of the Dragon Ball Z movies I've watched in a long time. I can't recommend this movie. This movie's just bad. Like the thing that I'm so upset about in this movie is that, one, this movie doesn't do anything to catch my attention. Because, like, Vegeta's not there, Goku's not there, Gohan's not there, Piccolo's not there, Yamcha and Tien aren't even there. Like, I have no problem with Krillin or Android 18 or Goten and Trunks, but with them being it and them not doing anything spectacular to beat the villain, because the way they beat the villain's bad too. Salt water? Are you serious? That's terrible. Nothing spectacular was used. I thought Goten was just gonna up and find a weakness and beat Bio Broly, but that's not the case. It was weird. They had to rely on such an odd method in order to just outsmart this Broly. And he's a clone, and it's pathetic, and it was a clusterfuck. It was just a really bad clusterfuck that came together. I can't recommend this movie at all. It was a lot of just moments where I really didn't care, and that's the core of it all. I just didn't care. I really just didn't care. Like, if you want my true opinion of what's going on, I just didn't care. And that's sad. Like I didn't want to not care. I just didn't. That's pretty much the core of what I have to say about this movie. Like I said, this movie, if it was on TV or something at one point, I would watch it, but only if I haven't watched it in a while. Like I said, I've literally watched this movie twice. I'm not gonna say it's bad, like it's bad as a movie. It's just, from the movies I've reviewed so far, and the movies that I've seen of the Dragon Ball Z movies I've seen so far, this is definitely it's definitely nowhere near the bar that's set for Dragon Ball Z movies. Like, and that's not counting the movies that I haven't done the reviews of yet. This movie definitely could be improved. Because it's not good. There's no other way I can say this anymore. It's just bad. It's awful. But there's things that could have been done to make it better. One, like I said, have a better cast. 2, have a better plot. 3, don't reuse the same fucking villain. But anyway, with that said, there's nothing really else I have to say about it that hasn't already been said. This movie isn't good. Not the worst Dragon Ball Z movie, I will say that. It's not the worst. But it's definitely not good. Out of all the movies I reviewed, this is the worst movie I've reviewed so far. But, yeah. With that said, the next movie I'll be doing the review of is movie 12. And that movie is titled Dragon Ball Z Fusion Reborn. Fusion Reborn isn't as bad as this movie, but I gotta say, I don't like that movie either. So, yeah. See you all then, everybody. Tyrone the God 3 out.